October 19, 2025. Four people walked into the Louvre. 4 minutes later, they walked out. With 88 million euros worth of French crown jewels. On their way out, they dropped a crown on the sidewalk, and that's just the beginning. The Louvre, the most visited museum on Earth. 10 million visitors a year, 35,000 artworks spread across 73,000 square meters of exhibition space. The Mona Lisa, Venus de Milo, the diamonds of French queens and empresses, a place where millions come from every corner of the world to stand in front of objects that shaped civilization. A place that feels permanent, eternal, untouchable. It is the single most iconic cultural institution on the planet, and it was wide open. But here's what almost nobody knew. Security cameras covered just 39% of the rooms. That means more than half of the most famous museum in the world was a blind spot. The camera inside the Apollo Gallery, the room that housed the crown jewels, was facing the wrong way. It was physically pointed in the wrong direction. Nobody checked. Nobody fixed it. And the password for the surveillance system, the word Louvre. Just Louvre. 6 letters, the name of the museum itself. This is not a joke. This was the actual password protecting the security infrastructure of one of the most important cultural sites on the planet. Back in 2014, France's National Cybersecurity Agency ran an audit and raised the alarm. Critical vulnerabilities, outdated software, trivial passwords. Recommendations were written up, sent off, and forgotten. For 11 years, those recommendations collected dust. A month before the heist, in September 2025, gold worth 600,000 euros was stolen from the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. The year before that, the Cognac J Museum and the Huron Museum were both robbed. A pattern of museum thefts across France was escalating, but nobody connected the dots. Nobody reinforced security. Nobody fast-tracked those recommendations from 11 years earlier. And then came October 19th, Sunday, 9:30 in the morning. The museum had been open for just 30 minutes. The first tourists were only beginning to filter through the galleries, the usual Sunday morning crowd. Outside, Paris was waking up slowly. A small truck pulled up along the south wall of the Louvre, facing the Seine. Nothing unusual. 4 men got out. 2 of them put on orange high-visibility vests and pulled on balaclavas. They looked like construction workers, like ordinary tradesmen on a job. In Paris, furniture lifts on the street are a common sight. They're used for apartment moves, for hoisting furniture up to upper floors. Nobody paid any attention to yet another lift parked against the wall of an old building. The lift unfolded. The basket rose toward a first-floor balcony, the balcony of Charles IX, the historic wing of the palace. 2 men climbed into the basket and rode it up. 2 stayed below, sitting on motor scooters, waiting. At the top, they pulled out an angle grinder, switched it on. The blade touched the window glass. Sparks flew along the frame. The glass cracked, vibrated, and finally gave way. Alarms went off. Red lights flashed across the walls, but it no longer mattered, because behind that window was the Apollo Gallery, one of the most magnificent rooms in Europe. 16th century golden ceilings, frescoes, moldings, gilt, and behind the glass of the display cases, the jewels of 4 French empresses, tiaras, necklaces, earrings, brooches, stones that were centuries old. The guards turned toward the sound. 2 men in balaclavas stood before them, power tools buzzing in their hands. A spinning angle grinder pointed in their direction. No firearms, but a rotating disc capable of cutting through glass and metal is a persuasive enough argument. The guards backed away. The thieves smashed the display cases, 9 items from 2 glass cabinets. The tiara from the sapphire set of Queen Marie Amélie, the necklace from the same set, an earring, the emerald necklace of Empress Marie Louise, a pair of emerald earrings, the tiara of Empress Eugenie, a large corsage bow brooch, a reliquary brooch. Everything went into one bag. Fast, precise movements, no fuss, no words, back to the window, down the lift. One of them tried to set fire to the lift basket, hoping to destroy any traces. Smoke rose, but the flames didn't catch. Below, 2 men on scooters were waiting. Transfer, engines started. And in that moment, in that rush, one item slipped out of the bag. The crown of Empress Eugenie. It hit the pavement. Gold struck stone. They didn't notice, didn't look back. The scooters tore away. 4 minutes inside the museum, 8 stolen items. The 9th lay on a Paris sidewalk. They were already racing along the banks of the Seine. But here's the question that would haunt investigators, experts, and journalists for months. Why didn't they touch the most valuable items? In the same gallery, in the neighboring cases, sat 3 legendary stones. The Regent Diamond, 51 million euros. A single stone, worth more than half of everything they took. Next to it, the Sancy diamond. Next to that, the Hortensia diamond, untouched. They took a lot, but they left more. Were these petty thieves who simply grabbed what was closest? Or was there a calculation behind it that we still don't understand? The escape along the Seine, onto the boulevard Périphérique, then the A6 motorway heading south. They dissolved into the flow of Sunday morning traffic. 2 scooters among thousands of vehicles. No helicopter pursuit, no roadblocks, no high-speed chase. They simply rode away. The Louvre was evacuated. Thousands of tourists ushered out onto the street. The doors closed. For the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic, the most visited museum in the world shut down, not on schedule, but because it had become a crime scene. Within 2 hours, the entire world knew. Headlines in every major publication on the planet. Heist of the century. BBC, New York Times, Reuters, CNN, Le Monde. Newspapers, websites, television networks, all saying the same thing. Someone robbed the Louvre in broad daylight during opening hours and walked away. Interpol added the stolen jewels to its international database of stolen works of art that same day. 60 investigators were assigned to the case. Then the number grew to 100, then more. Over 150 pieces of evidence were collected from the crime scene. French President Emmanuel Macron issued a statement. He called the robbery an attack on a heritage that the French cherish because it is their history. He pledged to recover the jewels and bring those responsible to justice. Culture Minister Rashida Dati described the robbery in more clinical terms. She said, "They entered calmly, in 4 minutes, smashed display cases, took their loot, and left. No violence, very professional." These words, very professional, would later sound deeply ironic. The opposition was furious. Jordan Bardella of the National Rally called it a humiliation and asked publicly how far the decay of the state would be allowed to go. Eric Ciotti of the Union of the Right called the robbery the ultimate symbol of the current government's collapse. He said that by allowing such a thing to happen, the entire nation was under threat. Communist Senator Ian Brossat reminded the public that shortly before the heist, Louvre employees had gone on strike over what they called unbearable working conditions, and the government had ignored their demands. The Louvre's director, Laurence Descartes, wrote a resignation letter that same day and submitted it to the Ministry of Culture. It was refused. They told her, now is not the time to leave. But the most unexpected reaction didn't come from the government or from Parliament. It came from Germany. Boker, the company that manufactured the very furniture lift the thieves used to break into the Louvre, posted an advertisement on social media. The image showed a lift next to the Louvre. The caption read, "Quiet as a whisper." The post went viral. Millions of views, thousands of shares. Dark humor at its finest. At the crime scene, police collected 150 pieces of evidence. Fingerprints, DNA samples, a motorcycle helmet that one of the thieves simply forgot to take with him, power tools, a blowtorch, gasoline, a walkie-talkie, gloves, a blanket, and a crown on the sidewalk. Police began reviewing CCTV footage along the escape route, and here a bitter irony emerged. The city's cameras worked. Parisian street cameras captured the scooters, the route, the timing, but the museum's cameras did not work. The very cameras that were supposed to protect a collection worth hundreds of millions of euros were either pointed the wrong way or didn't exist at all. The remaining major stones, the Regent Diamond, the Sancy, and the Hortensia, were urgently transferred from the Louvre to the vaults of the Bank of France. The risk was too great to keep them in the museum any longer. The Louvre reopened 3 days later, October 22nd. The Apollo Gallery remained closed. But people weren't deterred. Quite the opposite. Tourists began coming specifically to see something else. The broken window on the south wall. The very one the thieves had cut through. It became the new attraction. People posed for photos in front of it, took selfies, posted them online. October 25th. 6 days after the robbery, 6 days of silence, 6 days of the entire world watching and waiting. Charles de Gaulle Airport, departure terminal, a man in the boarding queue, flight to Algeria. He's nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot, looking around, passport in hand. 2 plainclothes officers approach, police. A tap on the shoulder, he freezes. The same day, a second arrest. An apartment in Seine-Saint-Denis. Dawn. Tactical officers kick down the door. Both men detained were in their 30s. Both were already known to police from prior cases. Burglaries, not major criminals, not an international network. Ordinary break-in specialists with records. The key piece of evidence, a motorcycle helmet left at the crime scene. DNA from the inside of the helmet matched one of the detained men. He had simply forgotten it, left it on the sidewalk, next to the lift, next to the crown. 4 days of interrogation, silence, denial, and then a partial confession. They admitted they were there, they admitted involvement, but not fully. October 29th brought a new wave, 5 more arrests. Police raids across multiple addresses in Paris and the surrounding suburbs. Doors kicked in, people let out in handcuffs. But 3 of the 5 were released, insufficient evidence. On October 31st, 2 more appeared before a magistrate. A 37-year-old man charged with theft and criminal conspiracy. A 38-year-old woman charged with organized theft and conspiracy to commit a crime. Both denied any involvement. The total, 4 charged. Organized gang theft, criminal conspiracy. 3 released, 1 suspect still at large. And the jewels? Not a single item has been recovered. 8 objects from the French crown jewels collection. Tiaras, necklaces, earrings, brooches that once adorned empresses vanished. They don't appear in Interpol's recovered database. They weren't found during searches, or on the black market, or at any dealer. 8 items, centuries old, simply gone. The only thing that came back was the damaged crown of Empress Eugenie, the one they dropped on the sidewalk. It was damaged because the thieves had pulled it through an opening in the display case that was too small for it. The Louvre's directors said preliminary assessments suggested restoration was possible, but everything else, gone. October 22nd, 3 days after the robbery, the French Senate, a wood-paneled hearing room, rows of senators seated in a semicircle, cameras rolling, the nation watching. Louvre director Laurence Descartes stood before the Senate's Committee on Culture. Dozens of senators, cameras, official records. She admitted it. No external camera covered the wall through which the thieves had entered the building. The surveillance system was inadequate. Coverage, 39%. The camera inside the Apollo Gallery itself was facing the wrong direction. She confirmed that she had offered her resignation on the day of the heist, but the Ministry of Culture had declined it. A report by France's Court of Auditors confirmed what many had suspected. For years, the museum had prioritized spending on visible, public-facing projects, exhibitions, renovations of grand halls, marketing, rather than investing in basic security. France's leading art expert, Didier Reichner, blamed the director directly. He stated that she had prioritized her flagship projects over the basic protection of existing collections, beautiful exhibitions instead of working cameras, press conferences instead of passwords. Macron ordered faster implementation of the audit recommendations, the same audit from 2014. 11 years earlier, someone had written a document stating, "You have critical vulnerabilities, trivial passwords, outdated software." For 11 years that document existed, and only after 4 men with an angle grinder and a furniture lift carried 88 million euros worth of jewels out of the museum did someone decide it was perhaps time to start doing something. More than 5 months have passed since the robbery. The jewels have not been found. 1 suspect remains free. The Louvre is open. Tourists come. They take photos by the pyramid, walk through the galleries. But in the Apollo Gallery, beneath the golden 16th century ceilings, the display cases stand empty. Here's what everyone missed. Here's the detail that changes everything about this story. The Paris prosecutor's office gave this case an unexpected, almost unbelievable assessment. After weeks of investigation, after reviewing hundreds of hours of footage, after analyzing over 150 pieces of physical evidence, after interrogating multiple suspects, they reached a conclusion that nobody saw coming. They called the robbers petty criminals. Not professionals, not an organized crime ring, not master planners, not even particularly competent thieves. Petty criminals. That was the official word. People with records for apartment burglaries. People who forgot their helmet at the crime scene. People who dropped a crown on the sidewalk and didn't notice. People who tried to set a lift on fire with a lighter and couldn't even manage that. These were not the suave, genius criminals from a Hollywood heist film. These were ordinary burglars who stumbled into the biggest museum robbery of the 21st century. Petty thieves with an angle grinder and a furniture lift that cost €200 to rent. They robbed the most famous museum in the world, walked out with the jewels of 4 empresses, €88 million worth of French royal heritage, in 4 minutes, with a password that was the name of the building, with cameras pointing the wrong way, with 11 years of ignored warnings. This is not a story about a genius heist. This is not a story about a team of professionals who spent years planning the perfect crime. This is not even a story about crime.